The day I walked out of the Desert Ridge Correctional Facility, the January rain came down so hard it felt like the sky was trying to wash me away. I stood at the gate with a paper bag holding a dead phone, a wallet with $42, and a watch my sister gave me when I turned 35. 7 years. 7 years inside for a crime I did not commit. The world outside had kept spinning as if I had never existed. My name is Michael Roark. I am 61 years old. I built Roark Logistics from one truck and a rented garage in Portland into a $40 million company moving goods across 10 states. I had 400 employees who called me Mike. I had a daughter named Emma who was my reason for everything. I had a wife named Diane who I thought loved me. And I had a business partner named Curtis who I trusted like a brother. Every single one of those things turned out to be a lie. The fraud charges came in the spring of 2014. The IRS showed up with agents and documents that made my stomach drop. Shell companies I had never heard of. Offshore accounts in my name. Invoices for nothing. My own accountant told investigators I had ordered him to falsify records. He said it with a straight face while I sat there unable to speak. My lawyer called it the most thorough financial frame he had ever seen. The jury saw a greedy rich man and gave me 12 years. I served 7 with good behavior. Diane came to visitation twice in the first year. She cried and swore she believed in me. The divorce papers arrived 11 months in. She had found someone else. I later learned that someone was Curtis. By then, nothing surprised me. What broke me was Emma. My daughter had been 26 when I went in. She had a good job, a fiancé named Greg, a future she built herself. When the charges came, Curtis terminated a consulting contract with Emma's firm. They let her go. Greg's family pressured him to leave the daughter of a felon. The engagement ended. She spent years trying to rebuild, then moved to Tacoma to start over where no one knew her last name. I did not learn this from Emma. She wrote cheerful letters for the first 2 years, carefully protecting me. Then the letters got shorter. Then they stopped. I called. She answered sometimes. She always said she was fine. She was not fine, and I was powerless behind those walls. Emma had a son, my grandson Leo, born 2 years after I went in. His father left when Leo was a year old. Emma was raising him alone in a 2-bedroom apartment, working as an office manager, clipping coupons. My daughter, who grew up in a 4,000-square-foot house, was clipping coupons to feed my grandson. Curtis Hartley was living in that house. He had married Diane. He was running my company, calling himself the founder in interviews, sitting in my chair, parking in my spot. I found this out through a private investigator named Ray Decker. I hired Ray with the last of the money Curtis had missed. Ray was 60, a former Portland detective who had left the force over a wrongful conviction. When I called him from a prison payphone, he said, "I remember your case. I always thought something was off." That was enough. What Ray found over the following months turned everything I knew into something uglier. Curtis had been stealing for years before the charges came. When the discrepancies got too big to hide, he made a decision. He and Diane, who had been involved for at least 2 years before my arrest, brought in a forensic accountant named Steve Molina. Steve did not just hide Curtis's theft. He redirected it. Every fraudulent transaction was pinned on me. Accounts were opened in my name using documents Diane had access to. My signature appeared on forms I had never seen. The evidence was immaculate, and it all pointed at me. Ray laid it out at a diner near the bus station my first week out. He slid a folder across the table. I asked about Steve Molina. Ray said Steve was in a bad place. He had done what Curtis paid him to do, but the money had dried up. Curtis cut him off after the conviction. Steve had moved to Boise, doing small accounting jobs, carrying the kind of guilt that shows up as insomnia and too much whiskey. Ray had spoken to him. Steve had not denied anything. He just stared out the window and said he figured this would catch up with him. Desperate men make the worst decisions, I said. Ray nodded. But they make the best witnesses. I spent 3 weeks watching before I made a move. I did not contact Curtis. I did not drive past the house. I had learned that patience is sharper than anger. I went to see Emma first. She opened her apartment door on a Tuesday evening and looked at me for 5 seconds. She had Diane's eyes but my stubbornness in her jaw. I could see the 7 years mapped onto her face. "Dad," she said, and her voice gave out. We sat at her kitchen table for hours. Leo was doing homework in the next room, humming to himself. She told me everything she had held back. The lost job, the broken engagement, the years of starting over. "Why didn't you tell me?" I said. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. "Because you were in there and I was out here and there was nothing either of us could do." What would knowing have helped? I did not have an answer. What I had instead was purpose. I told her I had not spent 7 years doing nothing. I had built something in that prison. A case. A plan. She looked at me the way she always does when she thinks I am underestimating the problem. Dad, Curtis has money and lawyers. We have a rented apartment and a car that needs a new alternator. We have the truth, I said. And we have something he does not know about. She raised an eyebrow. What? Me? He thinks I am a broken old man coming home to nothing. He does not know what I have been preparing. She was quiet. Then she called into the next room. Leo, come out here. There is someone I want you to meet. My grandson walked in with a pencil behind his ear and a math worksheet in his hand. He was 6, small for his age, with Emma's eyes and my way of holding still when thinking. He looked at me. You were in prison, he said. Not an accusation, just a fact. I was, I said. I didn't do what they said. He thought about it. Wrongful conviction? We learned about that. He nodded and climbed into the chair beside me like we had known each other for years. That was the moment I understood what I was fighting for. Finding Steve Molina took a week. I drove to Boise alone and found him at a coffee shop he used as an office. He was smaller than I expected, mid-50s, thinning hair, the careful stillness of a man trying not to look like what he is. I sat down across from him. He looked up. Recognition, fear, something close to relief. Mr. Roark, he said. How did you find me? Does it matter? His hands were not steady. I figured you would find me eventually, he said. I have been thinking about what I would say. I leaned forward. Then say it. What Steve told me over the next 90 minutes filled every gap. Curtis had approached him through a mutual contact. Restructure the records, make the trail lead to me, get paid, stay quiet. Steve had told himself I was probably guilty of something anyway. He believed that for about 6 months. Then I went to prison, and Emma lost her job, and he saw an article about my daughter. He had not slept more than 4 hours a night since. I need you to sign a statement, I said. A full accounting. If I do that, Curtis will come after me. Curtis is going to be in no position to come after anyone. He was quiet. What do I get? You get to stop carrying this. You get to look at yourself in the mirror. I will speak to the federal prosecutor about your cooperation. I cannot promise what they will do. But staying silent will be worse because I'm bringing this whole thing down with or without you. He stared out the window. Then he said, I have it all. I kept copies. The original documents, the account structures, my communications with Curtis. All of it. I did not let my expression change. Good. Bring it to me. I drove back to Portland with a folder worth more than anything I owned. Ray and I spent 2 weeks organizing. Steve's documents, Ray's evidence, a second forensic accountant's opinion, a digital expert who recovered email threads from an account Curtis thought was dead. The threads were detailed. They were damning. When I was ready, I called Curtis. He picked up on the third ring. His voice had the smooth quality of a man who had been comfortable for a long time. Mike, I heard you were out. How are you doing? I am doing very well, I said. I would like to come by the house and talk. A pause. The house in Lake Oswego. That is the one. Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. Another pause. Mike, I don't think that is a good idea. Tell Diane I am coming. I will see you Sunday. I hung up. Sunday morning I drove to Lake Oswego in a car Ray lent me, wearing decent but unimpressive clothes. I wanted Curtis to see what he believed he had created. Someone diminished. The door opened before I reached the steps. Diane stood there. 17 years of marriage and 7 years of absence had produced a version of her I recognized but did not know. She was wearing Curtis's expression. Mike, she said. She caught herself. Michael. Hello, Diane. The living room had been redecorated. My furniture was gone. Our photographs were gone. Neutral prints on the walls. Curtis stood near the fireplace, heavier than I remembered, wearing a sweater that cost more than my car. He looked at me with an expression trying to be friendly and landing closer to guarded. He extended his hand. I did not take it. I sat down in the chair nearest the door and waited. I understand you have had a difficult time, Curtis said. And I want you to know whatever hard feelings you might have. I do not have hard feelings, I said. I have evidence. The room went quiet, the way rooms only go quiet when everyone stops pretending. I have Steve Molina's signed statement. I have the original documents. I have your emails, Curtis. The ones you thought were deleted. The ones where you lay out the entire plan in writing because you were arrogant enough to believe you would never have to explain yourself. I have a forensic accountant's opinion and a digital recovery report and enough documentation to interest a federal prosecutor considerably. Curtis's face was doing something complicated. Diane had gone entirely still. You set me up, I said. Not because I did anything wrong. Because you had been stealing and you needed somewhere to put it, and because you wanted the company and my wife and my house, and I was the most convenient solution to all of those problems at once. You destroyed my daughter's life and cost my grandson a grandfather for the first 6 years of his life. You did it without losing a single night of sleep in this house you do not deserve. Curtis found his voice. Whatever you think you have, I played the recording. Steve's voice, clear and level, recorded in that Boise coffee shop. Every step, the shell companies, the signature forgeries, Curtis's instructions repeated back in specific language, the payment amounts, the dates. I let it run for 4 minutes. Then I turned it off. The room was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator running. Curtis looked at Diane. She looked back at him with an expression I could not read. Whatever held them together, it was not love. It was complicity. Two people bound by a choice that could not be undone. They were looking at each other the way people look when the thing they built together is coming apart. What do you want? Curtis said finally. I want the company. I want this house. I want every asset acquired using what you stole from me. I want you to provide a full written confession and cooperate with the federal investigation that will follow this no matter what you decide. I want Diane to sign a statement acknowledging her prior knowledge and renouncing any claim to marital assets. And I want both of you to understand that my daughter and my grandson are going to be made whole. That is insane, Curtis said. His voice had lost its polish. You cannot prove— I can prove everything, I said. I have been inside a prison cell for 7 years. I did not spend that time grieving. I spent it planning. You had every advantage. All I had was time. I used it more carefully than you used your advantages. Diane spoke for the first time. Her voice was flat. What happens to me? I looked at her. I felt something quieter than I expected, a Finnish sadness. You cooperate with prosecutors. You sign the statements my lawyers will put in front of you. You tell the truth completely. In exchange, I will not push for your prosecution. I will let the district attorney decide. But if you withhold anything, I will make sure every detail of what you knew is on the public record. She nodded once. She did not look at Curtis again. The negotiation took 11 days. Curtis's lawyers made threats. Statutes of limitations, admissibility, a countersuit everyone knew was a bluff. I sat through it all with my own attorney and did not raise my voice once. I had said everything I needed to say in my living room. The rest was paperwork. Curtis pleaded guilty to federal tax fraud, conspiracy, and forgery. He received 10 years with parole possible after 7. Diane signed her statements. She avoided charges in exchange for full cooperation. She moved to Phoenix. We have not spoken since. Steve Molina received 18 months suspended, 3 years of probation, and a permanent ban from financial work. He sent me a letter, 4 paragraphs. It ended with, I know this does not fix what I helped take from you. I am sorry. It is not enough, but it is everything I have to give. I put it in a drawer. The company was in worse shape than it looked. Curtis had prioritized appearance over health. Client relationships had eroded. Key contracts were gone. 2 distribution centers ran below capacity. The board reconstituted itself quickly once things became clear. There were 4 original members who had never been comfortable with the story of my guilt. The rebuilding took longer than the justice. Emma came back to Portland, not to the company right away. That was her choice. But she came back. She found an apartment she liked. She enrolled Leo in a school with a good art program because he had turned out to have his grandmother's eye for color. I chose to see that as one of the universe's more pointed jokes. Leo and I established a routine. Saturday mornings at a diner 2 blocks from his school where he told me about his week, and I told him stories about his mother growing up and about his great-grandfather who built a business from nothing in a different time. Leo listened with the same still attention he had given his math worksheet the first night we met. He was building something in that small head of his, some understanding of the world and where he fit in it. I felt the profound responsibility of being part of that construction. One evening, about 8 months after I moved back into the house, I was sitting on the back porch watching the October light do what Oregon light does in the fall. Inside, Leo was helping Emma set the table. I could hear them arguing cheerfully about whether forks go on the left or the right, and Emma laughing when Leo declared that forks should go wherever makes the most sense geometrically. I thought about Steve's letter in the drawer. I thought about Diane in Phoenix carrying whatever it is you carry when you have made the choices she made. I thought about Curtis in a federal facility, sitting with the particular boredom of a man who believed his intelligence would protect him from consequences and found out too late that it would not. I thought about a question Emma had asked me 2 weeks after Curtis signed his plea. She had asked whether I had ever considered that the hatred might have done more damage to me than the 7 years. I had thought about it for 3 days before I told her what I had concluded. What I had felt was not hatred. Hatred is formless and corrosive. What I had felt was precision, a decision to be more careful than my enemy. A commitment to work longer and wait longer and document everything and speak quietly until the moment was right. That is not hatred. That is what it looks like when a man refuses to let the worst thing that happened to him become the only thing that defines him. She looked at me and said, "Dad, you are going to need to work on being a little less intense when Leo's teachers call." I told her I would try. There are things I cannot recover. The years Emma spent building herself back up alone. The evenings Leo went to sleep without a grandfather to call. The ordinary, unremarkable days that were simply taken from me. No court will address that. That grief belongs only to me and to my daughter and to a 6-year-old boy who once told me very seriously that he thought it was unfair we had missed each other for so long. I told him it was unfair. I told him it was also over. I told him that from here on out, every Saturday at the diner was ours, and every dinner where forks went on the wrong side geometrically was ours, and every ordinary day was ours. And we were going to use them. He considered this and said, "Okay, but I still think forks go on the left." He is right. Actually, they do. If you are listening, and you are carrying something like what I carried, a wrong done to you by someone who counted on your trust to make their betrayal easier, hear this directly. The people who hurt you believed they had calculated the full cost of what they were doing. They had not. They had not calculated patience. They had not calculated the specific quality of purpose that comes from having nothing left to lose and everything left to prove. They had not calculated what a man will do when he decides his story is not finished yet. Curtis thought I was a broken old man. He was wrong about the old part, too. My name is Michael Roark. I owned a $40 million company and a house in Lake Oswego and a life I had built from scratch. A man I called my partner took all of it while I was not looking. I spent 7 years in a cell that was not meant for an innocent man. I came out with $42 and a dead phone and one complete, fully documented plan. I got my house back. I got my company back. I got my name back. More than any of that, I got every Saturday morning at a diner with a boy who has my stubbornness and his grandmother's eye for color, and an opinion about fork placement I would not argue with for anything in the world. The people who tried to erase me are gone. I am still here. Keep fighting. Document everything. Be more patient than your enemy. And believe that the truth surfaces eventually, no matter how deep someone tries to bury it.